All right, now Ben Affleck appeared with Bill O'Reilly, actually on the same day as that really, really disappointing interview with Michael Moore. And Ben Affleck, as you know, I just mentioned he is joined at the hip to John Kerry, and he's supporting him. And here's what he had to say about, obviously, this guy, Ben Affleck, not read the 9/11 report either. This is what he had to say.
Saddam Hussein's Iraq was a Ba'athist, basically secular, former puppet state of the Soviet Union. In fact, Osama bin Laden had a vow, was a sworn enemy of Saddam Hussein's, and had so much so that he had to release a tape later on saying, well, it is okay to fight the Americans in Iraq now. I know that they're the godless communists, but now I'm sort of changing my tune. Everybody worth their salt knew that Saddam Hussein had no relationship with Al-Qaeda.
Obviously, Ben Affleck, I think Saddam Hussein is a communist. Don't know where that came from. But obviously, he says, he parrots the mythology that there was no connection. And as I mentioned, remember, the major maladjustment and misapprehension that people like Ben Affleck and those who claim that Iraq was not justified because Saddam Hussein was not involved in 9/11, what they fail to understand is we don't believe, those on our side, we don't believe that the action against Iraq was about retribution for 9/11. It's about preventing the next 9/11. It's as the president said, that when Saddam Hussein continued to defy the will of the world community after 12 years, when the burden of proof was on him to prove that he did not have these weapons, the president had a decision to make, and that was to trust a madman, a tyrant, someone who had been deceiving the weapons inspectors, or to remember the lessons of September 11th. He chose the latter, and I will go with that every time. But I just wanted to mention, because I said to Andrea I would mention this, page 134 of the 9/11 report describes an incident in February of 1999 when the intelligence agencies wanted to fly a U-2 over Afghanistan to gain some baseline intelligence about these terrorist camps and where the tribal people were meeting. And Richard Clark, you remember him, he didn't want to do it because he was afraid that the Pakistanis would tip off bin Laden, because we had to use their airspace. And he said if that were to happen, if bin Laden got this information, quote, armed with that knowledge, old wily Osama will likely boogie to Baghdad. And there are many other places in the 9/11 report where it's claimed that if Osama was driven out of Afghanistan, he would eventually end up in Iraq. And I guess my question to people who say Afghanistan was justified and Iraq isn't, where do you think Osama bin Laden was going to go for a new base of operations? Seems like a reasonable question. We'll take more of your calls on the other side, and I'll also share the worst thing Barack Obama said and the Wendy's story. All that and more on News Talk 890 WLS.